afternoon. This is a conversation with Al McFarlane. I am W.D. Foster Graham. I am the book review editor for Insight News, and I will be your host today for Thursday's book chat. The conversation with Al McFarlane has robust conversations and diverse topics from all over the world in the African diaspora. Also, like to give a shout out to the Minnesota Housing Authority for sponsoring today's program. Currently, we are north of 600 subscribers, and we're shooting for 1,000. So you tuning in to the conversation with Al McFarlane. Hey, like, share, subscribe. Now, for today's guest for our book chat is Professor Teferi Tafa. He is an adjunct professor of literature at the University of Northwestern, Minnesota. He was a visiting professor at Norwich University from 2017 to 2019. Before he joined Norwich, he was a lecturer at Addis Ababa University and Ambo University in Ethiopia. And he went to graduate school at Addis Ababa University, Ethiopia, received his MMA in human rights from Curtin University in Australia. He has also taken courses from Harvard University and Penn University. And Teferi is a prominent Oromo novelist, scholar, and movie maker. So in addition to publishing the first and so far only scholarly analysis of Oromo language novels and Oromo films, he has also published several of his own novels in the Oromo and English languages, including the award-winning Ja'alala Duga by Macmillan Publishers in London, and The Agony of Congested Heart by Akashic Publisher in Addis Ababa, Noir. So it is my great pleasure to introduce this multifaceted author, professor, movie maker, and speaker, Professor Teferi Tafa.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Professor, and then you just like a Renaissance person. I mean, you have many different skills, abilities, and gifts, and so. And we appreciate having you here on the conversation with Al McFarlane.
Thank you, WD. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's start out. Tell me a little bit about your history, because you are from the Oromo people.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. I'm from Ethiopia, from Oromo. We call Oromo Nation, and
Oromo, okay.
Yeah, Oromo Nation, and the Oromo Nation actually lives in Ethiopia and northern Kenya. About 90% of Oromo people live in Ethiopia, and only about 10% live in northern Kenya. And so I was born in a place called RC Bakoji, and I educated from 1 to 12. From K to 12 in RC Bakoji, and then I moved to Addis Ababa, and I studied my undergraduate study at Addis Ababa University, and again postgraduate at Addis Ababa University, and then came to United States in 2017, and I'm here now.
Definitely. When it came to like the history in terms of the culture, usually my understanding is it's very much an oral tradition. Can you tell who were the storytellers that are part of the Oromo culture?
Actually, we love telling a story. It's not only among Oromo, but among human beings. The story is what makes us human, for that matter. And even in my books, I said a lot of times, about how storytelling is important. And if you don't have story, you don't have history. If you don't have story, you don't have identity. If you don't, one very famous writer last time said that, you can know one, maybe 50 or 100 or maximum 150 person in person. Okay, and you can communicate with them, and you can unite them, by physical means. But if it is above that, if it is thousand or 10,000 or million, then you have to create a story that unify them. So the story is what unify you. And so in Oromo, um, all the people, especially your grandma, your grandpa, they tell you a story. And your mom also. Actually, I haven't heard any story from my father, my dad. He doesn't tell a story, or I I I don't remember, except his own story, what happened to him. But my mom is a good storyteller. She used to tell me Oromo story. But than anybody, my grandpa, he is a very good storyteller. He told me almost everything, almost all Oromo history and the Ethiopian history. And again, my grandma too. But than anybody, I really appreciate and I give gratitude to my grandpa.
I can appreciate that. I know in my own family, we heard stories that were passed down from our elders about where we came from, or about little things about how they grew up, and that's just an invaluable source of knowing our history.
Yes,
Because
of course. Yeah.
to say, I know the Sankofa, at least the
Yeah.
symbols represents that, because you see the Sankofa, the bird is looking backward and
Yes.
moving forward. Like when it comes to history, you got to know your history so you can move forward.
Yeah. Sure.
that
Absolutely. Yeah.
and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, Now, your book, I had the pleasure of reviewing it, "The Secret Deaths of Abba Gada and Other Stories."
Yes.
Um, I was intrigued by the I guess the way the government is, that the Abba Gada only is in power for like 8 years. Can you
Yes.
tell us more about that?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, I like this book, because what I'm trying to say is what we really what are we sending just sending a message to humanity, to all the people, how we appreciate some of these indigenous people knowledge and apply to our life, modern life, and create a good society, a good people. And one of the maybe legacy of Gada is term or termism. I like it. I like it most. Yeah, because the philosophy behind this termism is that every generation has its own hero, and every generation has a maximum effort in certain time. Okay, so Gada believe that your high time, your maximum time is from 40 years to 48 years, only 8 years. During that time, do the best, do what you can. Okay, do what you can. And it is during that time you have your generation. Yeah, is actually the election is you held election, of course, there is election, but the president should be the Abagada should be in your generation. That means his age should be between 40 to 48. And so you elect your leader, or the people elect someone from your generation, from someone from 40 to 48, and you rule only for 8 years. Okay, only 8 years. After 8 years, it's not yours. It's not yours. Then you have to pass it to other leader. And so, why are we fighting? it's it's because of power, right? Because everybody want to control the government. But if you have term, and if you say that, okay, now the turn is for this generation, and let this generation elect his leader and get elected, and then serve the people, and then retire. The other come, and then it goes like that. And so you can at least by many chance you can reduce this conflict. Okay, and so that's why, for example, in United States now we have term, the president only served 2 terms, 8 years. And we believe that, we always say that, oh, the American took it from us because, we started this 600 years ago. At least in written history, we started this 600 years ago. And ours is, before no nation or no society exercised this concept, this practice before Oromo. And but still in America, for example, if you are elected for Senate, you serve for 6 years, and then you can be elected again. You can be elected again. You can serve for life. And from Gada point of view, this is not right. You know, again, the Senate should be, there should be a term for senators, and Congress again. If you are in House of Representative, United States House of Representative, you serve 2 years, and then you have to be elected again, and 2 years and 2 years. But there is no maximum term. You can serve your whole life. That's not right, according to Gada. There should be term 8 years for senators, for House of Representatives, for governor, state governor, for anybody, even in the county. Anybody who holds the public office should serve only for certain years, and then let the other person also hold that position, and then go on. And that's what I advocate, and that's what I wrote about. And of course, the title is The Sacred Days of the Abagada in the other story. The Abagada in this story was he is the embodiment of this philosophy, but because of colonialism, because of colonial expansion, he died secretly. He died, and then the first story talks about how this concept, this idea, declined, and then the second chapter is how this concept in modern age, in 21st century, again rise. Nowadays I am speaking about it. Many people actually speak about it, and even now the UNESCO inscribed it as intangible human heritage. And now Gada is intangible human heritage. And I helped to inscribe Gada on UNESCO, inscribe, intangible heritage. And so now it is the idea we are discussing now. I am discussing with you about Gada, and people will discuss, and then it will be, it will be a useful concept, and the people may take it, and then in the future, in America, in Europe, in everywhere, hold accountable their leader or their office leader. And who knows, in the future, near future, maybe in the United States, we have a term for senators too.
Well, in other words, you call it 8 years, then you call it a day, you're done.
Yeah, yeah, yes,
Definitely.
yes.
So,
You can
uh,
say, what surprised me during the 2020 election? I was looking back, like you said about Gada, in Gada, you can't say, I can't transfer a power to someone. It's a shame. You have, first of all, the practice is when the incoming Abagada, he is elected, and then everybody is happy, and then the outgoing leader, president, asked the incoming Abagada, do you rule my people in justice? you know if everybody is equal, in everybody is in, do you rule according to the land's rule, the land's law? And then the incoming Abagada or leader say yes, yes, and yes. If he say no, then there is a problem. So there is understanding between them. But it's shame actually what happened in 2020. You remember when Biden was coming in, Trump didn't wait for
Yeah, I
the
remember.
White House, and this show you that still there is some some problem, or maybe some still we have to work hard on, and maybe make it universal, or what we say, let everybody accept it, and when it is wrong, let everybody say no, this is not right. Okay. Yeah.
That is true. That is so true.
Yeah.
So, and from that first story, I mean, you described so well what Abagada was, especially. But then the colonialists came
Yeah.
in terms of and then that made an impact.
Absolutely, yes.
Definitely. So speaking of that, um, would you like to say? We like to hear an excerpt from your book.
Okay. Yes. For example, let me read from here. Um, it is the second chapter, or the second story. It talks about, as I told you, my interest is, I look back, but my interest is, I am optimistic, and,
Mhm.
I'd say, Gada is rising. And so, what I'm saying is, for example, comparing the West and the East philosophy. Maybe when I say East, actually, it includes also Africa, the African. And so, for example, here, Gada is similar to Ubuntu in South Africa and Gichacha in Rwanda. And almost, I can say, is this indigenous political system in Africa is very similar, except where you have this Christian kingship, and again Sultan, or Islamic monarchy, or caliphate, something like that. If you look at African indigenous people, they have a very a very good, a very similar you know political system. For
Mhm.
example, if you read Things Fall Apart, Achebe Things Fall Apart, or maybe Arrow of God, or anything, especially these two books by Achebe, anywhere, especially I, as an African, as an advocate of indigenous knowledge and the indigenous political system, just it looks like it's very relatable, and it looks like he's talking about your people, the people you are coming from. And that's why sometimes people, because Achebe influenced me a lot, and sometimes in Ethiopia people say me, you are our Achebe, you know because the Abagada you have here, and uh, the the story, Izulu in, for example, Izulu in the Hour of God. Uh, the characters in Achebe's books are similar, but mine is like Achebe is simply showing the world what 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 was going on, or what happened in Igbo society. How things fall apart, how actually things fall apart in among Igbo society. He
Mhm.
didn't tell us, or he didn't show us things can come together. Okay, just
Mhm.
they fall apart, and then everything disintegrated, the society disintegrated, and then there is no unity. There is all individualism, everybody is upon himself, on something like that. But mine is, I am not pessimist, and I want to also show that we can come together, we can bring things together. The things fall apart can come together. And so in this sense, I am criticizing the Western individualistic approach
Hmm.
and just say there is also another way. There is alternative humanism, always, alternative humanism, the Western way of understanding human beings,
Hmm.
understanding somebody only as individual being is not enough. You
Mm.
know, that's why in Gada we say namatu nama namagoda means human beings makes you human beings.
Ah,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. In Ubuntu, you say, I am, therefore you are.
Hmm.
Yeah. So let me read you something from here.
Yeah.
Um, so the individualism is a theory, an ideology that has been imagined, created by those Western philosophers who invented the idea of individual autonomy and, of course, that idea of individual freedom. According to Oromo, individuals are not separate entity. We need another person to be a person. We need another human to be human. Human becomes human through humanization by other human or humans. In Oromo, we call namatu nama namagoda, means human makes human. Individuals' life has meaning and importance in relation to other beings, not in separation from others. So that individualism is only one cause of concern in the Western, while we care for all and we are holistic. That's what I want to say. We are holistic. And let me tell you here one story. Um, the anthropologist went to Africa, and then he said to boys, small boys, he said to them, "Okay, there you have orange under that tree, and run to that orange, and I give a reward for someone who get the orange first." And then he said to them, and then they get hand in hand and work together and get the orange together and come back. And then he said, "Why did you do that?" And then they said, "How we get happy? How we are happy when he gets and the others do not get it." So that means in African philosophy, we are happy when all of us are happy.
Ah, yes.
You know,
Hmm.
we are rich when all of us are rich. At
Hmm.
least, we don't believe in this called equality or what is called, everybody is equal. No, everybody is not equal. Everybody is, yet we celebrate differences, individualism, but we are not also unequal. Okay, we believe in equity, and
Hmm.
the where everybody is, have value, and when the society in which uh, you don't have very poor at the same time very rich.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what we mean there.
No, thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that. And speaking about the different types, the societies that are there in Oromo, I'm pronouncing it right?
Yes, yes,
Okay, because when I read the book, I was intrigued that the societies weren't always what you say patriarchal. There's a matriarchal, and and the person who stood out was her name was what, Grandma Manoye.
yes.
Tell us more about her. I mean, I figured.
Yeah, yeah. What is very fascinating about that is, maybe I don't know, here in Minnesota there are a lot of Oromo lives in this Minnesota, and just if by in case if you meet them, ask them, "Do you know Ako Manoye?" We call her Ako Manoye. Ako means grandma.
Uh-huh.
And, in English, we call it Grandma Manoye. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Do you know Grandma Manoye? And then he would tell you, yes, yes. because is I think she is a national hero, even though we don't recognize her. She is like a national hero, and I was just I was, because I used to hear her story when I was a boy, and I was fascinated by her story. And then when I grow up, especially when I was in university, I start to ask about her. And then when I was in graduate school, I was doing my PhD. And then I I totally of course I totally you know I criticized what they told me. What they told me is not right. It has been told us, or everybody you come across, they tell you they know her, but they don't tell you the truth. Okay?
Mm,
Yeah, because now we are in patriarchal. Even when you look at Abba itself, Abagada, it indicates male actually.
mhm,
Abba means father.
mm,
And so uh, he is the father of Gada, or he is a leader. That's
mhm,
what it means. But when you come to Akomanoye, then, because I was working to revive Gada, and
mhm,
while I was working, studying Gada, and, asking all people, I come across where this Gada come from? How it,
mm,
what happened? Where it come from? And then in southern part of Ethiopia, actually, I got it from a community. It's a clan, Oromo clan, is called Guji. And then the Guji elders told me that before Gada, we had a matriarchal system. We have matriarchal system, and they said, oh, that's great. And do you know them? And then they said yes, as I mentioned here, like Kaso Kasoye, Lasso Lasoye. And they told me five names, and then the last one is Akomanoye. And then they told me the story too. And for Akomanoye's story, I get this story from everywhere, from Western Oromia, Eastern Oromia. I have been anywhere, just because I was fascinated, and everybody actually they localize her. For
mm,
example, in Bali, they say that she died here. And in Wallaga, in western part of Oromia, they said, oh, this is her ore. Or in central part of Oromia, oh, she had, her cattle were drinking from this river, and so on. And so everybody localize her, but tell you something. She was a great woman. And then I wrote about it and included in this story. And my idea is that, in this story, and again, when you look at her story, she was a visionary. She envisioned what we call the space station nowadays.
mhm,
She said that, okay, again, what I want to include here, what I want the reader to get it is, I want to also touch upon this quantum physics, how birds fly, how they know their nest. For example, like, from bird story, there are birds who fly from uh, Alaska, from Canada, United States to Australia.
mhm,
Yeah, imagine how they know that, how they
mhm,
navigate. They know this quantum physics because quantum is universal reality. And
mhm,
so Akomanoye was fascinated by this. How birds know their nest, how they fly, how they, and then
mhm,
how maybe we are human beings. And can we make something that fly like a bird?
mhm,
you know and then she ordered, she was a leader, and so she ordered, make a house that cannot touch the heaven and the earth, in between, and then the male said, this is impossible. How can we do that? And then it is really taboo to say no to the leader, but they said, okay, we will do, but as a leader you should lay the foundation, lay the foundation. And then she she didn't go on with this idea, and then they said we abandoned it. But the point is, the idea is that these women, at least as I told you from written history, we Gada started in around 1420, uh, because we have um, 75 abagadas, and when you multiply 75 by 8, then it gives you the number. And when you subtract that number from 2025, I mean 24, then it gives you 1420. At least that is what we have, what we know. But we know that Gada is also practiced before that. But then, if it is before, let's say, 1,000 years, Ako Manoye must have, lived 1,000 years ago, or before 1,000 years ago. And before 1,000 years ago, she envisioned, airplane, space station, and quantum, and so on. And that's why I included her in this book. And of course, from this story, from this book, as you read, as you see, she was adopted. She was. Uh, she was killed. She was, the male revolted against her and abducted her, and then they said, um, now onward this woman never should not rule, because the idea behind, even in modern days, nowadays, there are some chauvinist men who believe that women are irrational.
Hmm.
This concept of irrationality come from there. Look at
Hmm.
Akomanoye, she's crazy woman. She's irrational. She said that, make a house that floats between earth and the heaven. But that's not true. It's possible. If they really thought about it, if they were good engineers, then they could have made it. Okay, and so they say women are irrational and they should not rule, and so um, we should only male should come to power, should become a bagada. And of course they said still now there is women right, it gada respect women right, the women have a right. But they after that, for last 600 years, we didn't have a woman ruler.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that, Professor. Now we're going to take a time out for a little station break. This is W.D. Foster Graham, and I'm your host today for the Conversation with Al McFarlane, which is also part of Insight News. So, hey, you'd say you like our content and programs, definitely tune in to Insight News Minnesota's YouTube channel, and we're going to take a break.
All right, thank you.
If you've not done so, consider getting vaccinated against the COVID-19 virus. At vaccine.gov, enter your zip code, your preferred vaccine type, and you get a map with locations eager to serve you. Getting vaccinated saves lives. Vaccine.gov can help you do your part.
Well, welcome back to Conversation with Al McFarlane and our guest author, Professor Teferi Tafa. Teferi has been sharing his book, The Secret Death of Abagada and Other Stories. But I know in addition to being an author, you are also a business person.
Yes.
You're an African Light Book and Coffee Shop. Okay, tell us about how that came to be, where people can come to check you out.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah. As I told you, I came here in 2017. And from 2017 to 2019, I have been teaching at Norwich University in Vermont, and then I moved to Minnesota. When I came here, I thought, and still I believe, yes, first of all, United States, the sky to the limit. Still, I believe there are a lot of opportunity, and there are a lot of opportunities also in Minnesota, and uh, when I was from, as I told you, I'm a writer. I love story. I love books, and then I want people to read, and I want people to get a story because a story can heal us. A story can help us. Story is, if we have a good story, and a story can unify us, and the story makes us, a good human, a good citizen, and so our main problem is because we don't read, or maybe we haven't got a good literature, a good story. And so how can I help, the society, the community? When I was in Ethiopia, I used to have a bookshop, and because I had a bookshop, I was a target. I was targeted by the government. I was a writer, and because I was a writer, I was targeted. I was imprisoned, and confiscated, and I shut down my business, and I was, in a good mood until I came here, and I was in really a very bad condition. And I came here. I came to Minnesota, and then I start teaching. I got also. I became adjunct professor at University of Northwestern in 2020, and then I got a teaching position in summer schools, and then I again COVID happened, and because of COVID, you can't go out, and so I said, okay, we are locked up here in the house, and then what can I do? And I was, thinking, I was, looking, different opportunities, and then I come up, why I don't open a online shop? And then I said, okay, let me try. And then I opened an online shop. And because I know this book business, I have experience when I was in Ethiopia. And again, I hear, let me test it. And then I started the online business, and I got some books. And fortunately, in 2020, I think in 2021, yeah, I published one book. And I published one book, and that book was really good book. It was in Amharic, and people like it. And everybody start to look. It is on the first list because it was our bestseller, our
Mhm.
in African light book in the coffee shop. It is the bestseller in the. I sold something. Within a week, I sold like $6,000. Just a
Awesome.
week,
Great.
and it was successful, or it was success. And then I also included some coffee, because I believe that coffee goes with book. When you read, you need coffee, and then when you get coffee, then you read a lot. It is inspire you. And so, yeah, that's how I started that business. And in 2022, we started also a physical shop. It is in St. Paul, 1263 Donahue Avenue, St. Paul, 55104. And so we started our physical shop too. And our online address is website is www.africanlightbookandthecoffeeshop.com. So yeah, that's how I started it, and still struggling.
Oh yeah. Well, I say I give my hat tip to you
Yeah,
because it's,
thank
it's
you.
so important for us as African Americans to have our own businesses, and so we that way we support our community.
Yeah, sure.
And so that, hey, that is invaluable. So, okay, so as an author myself, yes, I definitely want to come down and sit down and read and all those good things.
Come on, please. Yeah, I'll serve you coffee. Coffee is on me. Don't worry. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I know in reading Secret Death, and you cover from the beginning of your book when you have the stories about the Abagadan, the colonialists coming in, and what they did, and what how the how the backdrop changed. I know, but then you go all the way to the end, and I read something that reads like a spy thriller.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it starts out with the death of an Ethiopian musician, but it's not that simple.
Yeah.
I, our viewers and readers would love to hear something about that portion of the book, the story.
Yes. Look, maybe the tiny spa, maybe in the future also the critic can do or can work on the development of this story. This story, I wrote this story. I start writing this story in 2011.
Mhm.
And then I wrote it. Three stories were written in 2011, and I published three stories in 2011. But after that, I said, let me add this story. Let me add this story, and let me add this story, and then in I think 2020, what happened, a very shocking news, a very shocking phenomena happened in Ethiopia. The famous Oromo artist Hachalu Hundessa was killed. He was assassinated. Actually, there is a rumor that he was assassinated by the government because um, he was very he advocate for human rights, and he was um, he was not technically supporting the government, and then the government, the now Prime Minister Abiy warned him and again begged him, and then Hachalu said no, and then finally he was killed. And Hachalu was my friend. I had a good relationship with him, and even before that, uh, I think in 2019 he was in Australia, and when he was in Australia I met him. We had a phone call conversation, and then I asked him to come to United States and stay with us, and he said that he will come, in summer he will come, summer 2019. He said he will come, and but he was killed in June 2019. And because that story was shocking,
Mm.
and that story actually changed uh, a lot. I mean, I changed everything in Ethiopia. I believe, especially there was war in. The war started in 2000. I mean, 2020, northern part of Ethiopia. That also lead to his death. Also lead to that, and again, if you maybe if you follow Ethiopian news, the Oromo was even in there was popular movement in from 2014 to 2018, and then this mass movement actually changed the regime, and because that changed the regime, and now the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed come to power because of that mass movement, and the Oromo believe that because that movement was led by Oromo youth, and the Oromo believe that now we are in good hand, and everything will be all right, and there will be peace, and there will be development, and then because Hachalu himself was the ardent supporter of this mass movement, and he was also in a leading position in that protest. And so they say that when Achalu died, the Oromo believed that they were betrayed. They betrayed by the ruling party and the incumbent, this government, Abiy Ahmed. And then because of that, there was a lot of discontent, a lot of uh, confusion, and nobody tells you what happened. And then I said I should write something, I should do something. And then is simply, even though during that time I was teaching at University of Northwestern, and University of Northwestern said to me, would you teach crime fiction or develop a course on crime fiction? And I said, oh, that's great. And then I developed a course. I was teaching crime fiction, and even in crime fiction, because my interest is on world literature. I like world literature, and so I didn't only focus on crime fiction in United States, but crime fiction across continent, in Latin America, in Asia, in Japan, in Africa, and so on. And so when I read that book, I come across this detective story I love from, even when I was young. When I was young, especially university, I was a fan of Agatha Christie. And so I say, when I teach this, I say, okay, I have to write detective story. And my detector, my main character, the detective agent should investigate this crime. And so for that, I have to be, even if it is a story, it has to be believable, right? The story.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
yeah. And so I interviewed like 12 people, from federal police who were investigating that death, those people who were there uh, when he died, when they assassinated him, and the people who have seen him, or who have seen the autopsy, and so on. I investigated, I just interviewed them, and finally wrote this story and included in this book. And I think I did the right thing, because we have to remember Hachalu. He's a great musician. Actually, we lost him, and he's a great musician. And that's how I included in it. And so the book is, it's a collection of short story, and it is a kind of cocktail. It has everything. It has Gada, when Gada was declined, and again when Bagadas died, and again it has the rise of Gada, or revitalizing Gada, and at the same time in between there is conflict also, this civil war. And during civil war again, even though you are in civil war and you are in different party, but you can love each other. And sometimes, for example, if you look at the Galani and that boy, uh, you know, she became a member of OLF because the Derg government, the Ethiopian government, snatched or took her lovers from her.
Mm.
So he became the ruling party member, and she became the opposition party. But she actually, because he has taken by force from her, lead her to go to the opposition party, because she has to oppose the ruling party. And so there is such conflicting, but still there is unity, or maybe love, and something like that. And if you look at again at how we were Galan, it's what happened in how Addis Ababa expanded, and especially displacement, how new settlers displace the original indigenous people. And then it goes to Akomanoye story. And then again, toward the end, there is also impeachment. The impeachment of Abagada mean, you can impeach your leader. It's not only impeaching, is not a new concept in America. We have practiced this. Actually, in history, we have impeached two Abagadas, two Abagadas.
Hmm.
We
Mhm.
have 75 Abagadas, but we impeached two. And so I have to include that too. And finally, I included this story, Days Down the Street story about Chalun Desa. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Abby. Abby, you think about Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, and they're all wrapped up in all this war and political intrigue, and it's been like part of the history for quite some time.
Yes.
So, and going back to something you mentioned earlier, because when you were writing in terms of being optimistic. Now, how do you see your book and see your vision of making a change in the world? 'Cause we got about 6 minutes here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Actually, Kenya is relatively a peaceful country. There was war, Mao Mao, only in 1950s and early 60s, and that was, war against colonialism. After independence, Kenya is relatively a very peaceful country, and I'm jealousy of Kenyans. But when you look at Ethiopia, Somalia, Djibouti, Eritrea, Sudan, and the other part of Africa, yeah, it's terrible. Yes, there is constant war, and there is coup d'etat. For example, Sudan is a leading African country by coup d'etat. I think there was about 19 coup d'etat in Sudan, out of which something like 9 was successful coup, successful coup. And in Ethiopia again there was like 5 coup, but 2 were successful. And so that show you, because we lack this. That's a very interesting question. That is what I have said in my idea, my vision is Gada. Let's learn from Gada. Let's learn this Gada philosophy, and then it has a very, very interesting and a very useful concept about power, about humanity, about how we can live together in peace. Because in Gada, as I told you, maybe we have practiced it in for 600 years. The Oromo, when they were ruled by Gada, they had no war, but
Hmm.
they won two major battles. The northern Christian allied with the Portuguese and invaded Oromo, and the Oromo defeated them. The eastern, the Somali, the Afar, allied with the Turkish or the Ottoman Empire, and invaded Oromo, and the Oromo defeated them. And so Gada gave them power. And didn't also give them power, but it also gave them philosophy, how we rule each other, this Talmism. And so now let's go back to our roots and then heal our wounds. Let's believe in this term. Okay, the power. Let's limit power to only 8 years for everybody who hold public office. Give them 8 years. In 8 years, do maximum, do as much as you can. When they retire, appreciate them and maybe you could also motivate them. You could give them reward, and then they said, oh, don't go far, you know just around here. For example, if you make How you feel, for example, when Trump was going out and Biden come in, and then Trump become advisor to Biden. Is it not possible? It is possible. Gada encourage that. Gada is, when you are retiring, when you leave the power, of course the leader is the one who elected, but the retiring one is also a counselor, advisor. He is now far from there and sometimes help you. So during my time, during my term, this happened, and I solved it in this way.
Mhm.
But for you, I would advise you can do this and this. Okay? So that means that create
Mm.
not division, that create unity, that create harmony, and that help everybody. Okay? Well, from division, nobody benefits. But from unity, everybody benefits. And so that is what I mean. That is what I say. That is what we have to learn from Gada. And that's why I write this book. And again, in the future, I'll write maybe similar story, just that help the whole humanity.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I say, well, the key is that unity. And that's something that I personally would try to take away from your book. And so,
Yeah, yeah,
that being said, like, Professor, it has been a pleasure and an honor to have you on our show. For those of you out there who would like to purchase Professor Tafa's book, I just gave you a moment to just let them know uh, where they can get it, all the different avenues that they can purchase the book. Because we've got about one
yeah.
minute.
All right. Yeah, actually, they can get it from Amazon. They can get anybody can get it from Amazon, and they also can come to my book and a coffee shop in St. Paul. Um, is 1223 Donahue Avenue, St. Paul 55104. It is just next to Midway Super Target, and that's easy. And anybody can come and buy the book, or maybe they can order www.africanlightbookandcoffeeshop.com. This is the address, and so they can get this. They can order from here and get the book. And again, I am active member of Minnesota Black Authors. Both I and WD, we are a member of that organization, and you can also get from there. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. Well, again, thank you for being our guest today. This is Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm WD Foster Graham, your book review editor and host for today. And in the meantime, take care, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you in the next go round.
yeah. Thank you so much for having me here. I really enjoyed talking to you, and it has been a very good conversation, and I really appreciate.
You're welcome. Peace out.
Yeah, thank you.